by that. I know the fan day that they did was way scaled down from what they wanted to do originally. Bits and pieces like that. So, and I know this is across the board all the other clubs, but we're talking that our experience of season ticket holders who donated money back to our clubs that we support. But I think the point as well is this rewarding the fans thing is yeah. I agree, because they give us too many games already in the regular season. If we had 24 games and then we were expected to pay 20 quid for our semi-final ticket effectively, I'd say it's a big game, it's a semi-final. Get your money out. Normal years, I'd say get your money out and pay, and it's on the fans that they're not going to them. This year, completely on board with what you're saying. They could have done something more. I just think Super League have got the strategy wrong there, though. These are big games. These are games where you could entice fans of maybe even neutral fans to go to these games because they're supposed to be big games. They're supposed to be high intensity, high enjoyment. This season we kind of haven't had that whatsoever. But still, it needs a rethink. I've seen suggestions out there. Steve Maskell was saying, why not have it like a Magic style thing and put them in different cities and have 2 games together and stuff like great, but then that's again competing for the money with the same people. Because it's not like they're selling out Magic Weekend to people from Newcastle and then having 35,000 Rugby League fans turn up. They're having 5,000 people from Newcastle, 10,000 people from Newcastle, and they've got a year to sell that every time. So let's
not be fleecing the fans more than we need to.
Yeah, and I just don't think there'd be enough interest. I don't think it'd be any better doing it that way. I think we need to think about what we want the playoffs to be, who we want, how we want it to be. And the best playoff nights I remember were the first few years of the playoffs. Wigan, Bradford, Wigan, Saints, Bradford. Leeds came into the picture as well at that time as well a bit. Hull had a few playoff games, didn't they, around that time? And back then, it was like a £5 or £2.50 for concessions for the playoff games. That, to me, was a more sensible pricing strategy if you're expecting fans to go to 25 other games, 30 other games a season, pay for Magic Weekend, pay for Wembley, pay for Old Trafford. I think there's a rethink needed.
Yeah, and I was looking at the pricing set up at Halifax, and I accept that they're a lower division, blah, blah, blah. They were £15 for an adult and £1 for a child. It just motivates you to go more, especially
but
when
they only got 1,200.
Yeah, I know. And there's a lot of outrage on their boards about it, but
so
I think when you're looking at having to spend a lot of money, plus how much it's going to cost for kids, some of the matches on a school night, things like that, they all factor in. You never know when you're going to be playing your matches.
Yeah, well, I suppose you can't control an element of that with the playoffs because you don't know you're going to get there. You don't know where you're going to finish, so you don't know when you're going to be playing them. But that's why they need to rethink the pricing strategy.
Yeah, because if actually I'm only paying £2 or whatever for the kids, then I think you'd think, oh, well, that's all right then. Whereas if you're expected to pay £15 for them, that's a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah. Stat line of the week will be Hanley's 216 metres, I think, with a try as well. The one try in that match. That's mine anyway. Player of the week, we're going to go with Jordan Abdull, aren't we? He was the most important player in the most entertaining game.
Yeah.
That was through gritted teeth, wasn't it?
No, I like Abdull. He's a good player. I wish we hadn't let him go. I just think that there's not a lot of great stuff to talk about from the weekend, so it's not like there's masses of choices to who is the player of the weekend or whatever.
No, talking about not great stuff to talk about. Predictions. Me and Neil both went none out of 2, so hats off to us there. In the Super Brew, in the host Super Brew, Alan's top. He might be hard to catch now. He's got a 5-point lead over David, who's the only one in striking range of Alan. You're third, Sarah. I think you'll stay third now, sorry. I'm fourth and Tim's fifth. In the main Super Brew, it's a bit more interesting. John Locke is top, but it's very close in the top 5. John McNelly has the yellow cap this week, and he's maybe the last chance person to get in there. But that top 5 is very, very close. It's going to be interesting. Fantasy League, Neil insists they've fixed the scores. So with that in mind, we're going to revisit the Fantasy League now as the season's over in that competition. And guess who has won? Alan Bagley. Shocker.
Surprised me.
He's miles ahead of everyone else. And this year it's with 2 sides. His sides take the top 2 spots. His second best side is miles ahead of everyone else. I gave up. I'm not going to lie. I gave up because I thought it wasn't working properly. But Neil Ormston got in touch, Sarah, to congratulate Alan.
Yeah, I mean, that is impressive, isn't it? And he said, congratulations to Alan Bagley on landing the SLP Fantasy League title. Think it's time to give the competition a shout out as they've updated the stats now. My first year doing this, and now I know what I'm doing. I'll have a proper crack next season when I'm confident of success. It's always our year.
Well, it genuinely always is Alan Bagley's year, so good luck, Neil. Thanks everyone for the fan views on those games. Some absolute crackers in there, more entertaining than the matches themselves. So well done everyone. Give yourselves a pat on the back. We're now going to cover off the other results from around the world of Rugby League.
In other results, we'll start with the Women's Super League playoffs, where it finished St Helens 58, Castleford 0.
Yep, at Mike Webb 58 got in touch, suitably named for this game, innit?
Yeah, Mike.
He says, great display from Saints, but still a few errors. Shame Cass had to blood some very young players. Suspect Leeds may be more battle hardened for the final, but definitely a game to look forward to. Yeah, Saints scored a few good tries against an understrength Castleford side. If the rumours are true that Conrad Hurrell's going to St Helens, if he can have any sort of sniff of the powerful, imposing centre play that Kerry Roberts has been putting on for that side, then they'll be absolutely delighted with what they get, whether he can or not, because they've been really, she's been really good on that in that right centre as Kerry Roberts, and she's kind of jumped out from the highlights more than anyone else. I didn't get the chance to watch this game in full. Jodie Cunningham scored a nice try as well herself, and so yeah, it was all over by half time.
Yeah, and in the other playoff match, it finished Leeds 22, York 18.
A mention in this game for someone who really impressed me off the bench, Zoe Hornby for Leeds in the second half. I thought was everywhere with the ball. So many carries, always making an impression as well with the carries, and I think probably wasn't called out enough by the commentary team on this one. I did catch the second half of this one. I missed York jump out to their healthy 14-4 half-time lead, but Leeds in the second half with some good performances from Courtney Winfield-Hill, who always pretty outstanding, but also Hornby that I mentioned, and Sophie Nuttall scored a good try. Natasha Gaines as well was decent out the backfield. So yeah, Leeds will be a different kettle of fish for Saints to take on. Yeah,
and then in the Women's Shield, it finished Featherstone 30, Bradford 12, and Huddersfield 30, Warrington 26.
Yeah, a golden point try in this one to win it from Erin Stott of the Giants. So well done there. That obviously seems like it was exciting, and it means that even though it's a minor final, Andrea Dobson will get to lead Featherstone out in a final for her final ever match. She did score a try in this one. Championship, Sarah.
Yep, so it was championship playoffs as well, and it finished Batley 23, Bradford 10. David Hunter said, it was a real treat to watch some championship action here, also with Mount Pleasant Stadium and the Slurp. Batley were just too good, and Gilmore was a big reason why.
Tommy Edwards said, as a Bradford fan, this is just embarrassing. Our fall from grace goes even further. I'd say this has been an up year for Bradford, but they did lose. this game.
Yeah. And at 6 again said, Tom Gilmore is a very underappreciated player, stood up, organised his team around the field and done this in arguably the shadow of Danny Brough and Jordan Lilly, a very classy player.
And Paul Mac _78 said, really enjoyed this game. The Batley halfback looks like he has something, but the star for me was the ground. What's the story with the slope? Obviously, the Aussies are getting maybe the first taste of Batley, with David and Paul both mentioning the famous slope. I think we're so used to it that we don't even necessarily mention it every time we talk about Batley. But it was the winger at Batley who the other year was running so fast on an interception try down the slope that when he had to sort of put the ball down, he ended up dislocating his shoulder or something because he was going too fast and couldn't slow down. I can't remember who it was. But yeah, it's a big slope.
Yeah,
that's the story with it.
Yeah.
If people are interested in slopes at grounds, there are other grounds with slopes. I mean, there's a bit of a slope at Fev, isn't there? There's quite a substantial slope at St James's Park where Magic Weekend was played. But yeah, Batley's is the most famous.
Yeah.
Nearly as famous as probably the slope at Lord's Cricket Ground.
Yeah.
I didn't watch this one, sorry, so I can't say anything more about the performances, but well done to Batley.
Yeah, no, I think I watched all of it. It was a good game. There was a point at which it looked like Bradford was coming back, but Batley held off. So it was good for them to get that win, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone commented on Gilmore, 5 goals and the drop goal. That probably made it out of range, and a try for him. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, like was said about, in the shadow of Danny Brough and Jordan Lilly, because obviously that's who the talk was about, because they're,
famous.
They're the big names in quotations. Yeah, and then in the other playoff match in the Championship, it finished Halifax 24, Whitehaven 20.
David Hunter got in touch to say, although the final score was only a 4-point margin, I never believed that Whitehaven were going to win. But I think they can be more than pleased to make it as far as they did this season. Yeah, we talked about Hull KR and how remarkable and defying expectations, and from the bottom last year, everyone thought they'd be down in that position again. Whitehaven is exactly the same story. It's just as remarkable that they've made this stage of the season in the Championship. So, well done to them. I watched the first sort of 15 minutes or so of this game, and I thought it was going to be all one-sided because the Panthers, as they are now, the Blue Sox as they were, led out to quite a lead early doors. But it seems like Whitehaven always kept themselves in with a shout, but weren't quite good enough.
Yeah. We watched, how much of it did we watch? Probably about the first half. And yeah, I totally agree with David that once Halifax had got off to such a good start, they looked dominant, and whilst Whitehaven did well to score the points, it didn't ever feel like they were going to come back and win it.
Yeah, well done to Halifax and Batley.
Yep, and then into League One for the promotion playoffs, it finished Workington 18, Keighley 16.
Paul Buckley got in touch. He said, I would have preferred to listen to a commentator who could pronounce Keighley instead of Keighley. I don't know if that's come across well, but that's how it's written. The choice of a Workington player as a guest commentator led to a less than even-handed narrative. The game was riveting, marred only by the one-sided coverage. Not a complaint that could be levelled against the coverage of North Wales versus Doncaster game. I do wonder if maybe it was a situation where someone had to pull out and they had to pull someone in at the last minute, or maybe they just had no one available or something for why that ended up being the R-League commentary situation. I didn't see any of this game, I'm afraid, so I don't know, but I understand it was exciting and went right down to the wire, and was what was it? Did it go golden point this one? It did, didn't it? Did Keighley score